What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Gift of Immanuel Podcast. And Happy New Year. We into a new year, 2025, and I'm just knowing, I'm feeling in my spirit that it's going to be a great year, a year of just like, if 2024 was a great year, like if it was, then 2025 is going to be like a outpour type year, like just blessings after blessings, healing, victory, revival, all types of stuff. I'm just believing that in my spirit. And, with that being said, the word for the day is it's time to build. It's time to build up everything that God has called each and every one of us to build, because we are all meant to build. If we are in Christ Jesus, He has all called us to a purpose, to a place and position that we need to occupy until He comes. Building, it takes a lot. Mentally, it takes a lot. And it takes endurance. It takes a lot of things. But we're just going to talk about that all throughout the podcast. And I'm your host, as always, David Immanuel. And let's just get into it. So, again, the title is It's Time to Build. A lot of times, we stop ourselves early on from building because we're imagining how much we're going to have to do. We're imagining the end when we are just in phase one. And what that can do is it can get us to despise small beginnings. It can get us to hate the start. And the Bible does say that it's better to finish a thing than to start it. But I believe that's what it said. I'm going to go back and find it. But we shouldn't despise small beginnings. Why? Because everything that's going to be big, it starts somewhere. Everything that's big now, Nike, Coca-Cola, any ministries that you see, they are big because they started somewhere. They started somewhere. And it may not have been a big start. It may have been so small, they may have been like, this is not enough. But that's the mindset that the enemy wants us to get in. To the point where we give in early. The point where we give up before the race has actually begun, before things start to pick up, before the explosion happens. Because the enemy they have a spirit of genocide. The enemy has a spirit of genocide that wants to kill before the baby even is born, before the baby can even walk, talk, move, jump, grow, before the baby got muscles, before the baby can fully be developed into an adult human, they want to kill it. Look at what happened with Herod and Jesus. Herod sent out a message to kill all children 2 years and older. Even with Pharaoh, he sent out a message to throw all the babies into the Nile and let the crocodiles eat them and all that stuff. There's a spirit of genocide that the enemy has, and it's the same with your business. It's the same with your character. It's the same with your integrity. It's the same because as you are becoming something new, as you are building something new, there's always going to be something trying to stop you. And if it can stop you in the early stages, then that's when they have you. So you cannot allow the enemy to kill the baby that God has placed in your heart, in your belly, to bring forth into the earth, because it's needed everywhere. It's needed. It's needed. And it will bless you, yes, but it's not just for you. And we know that. It's for so many others. You have a heart for the homeless. You have a heart to help children who may not be, they may have learning disorders or whatever the case may be. You have a heart for certain people, and God has placed that in your heart so that none of His creation will be neglected, so that people can get what they need through you. So I'm going to read some of the things that I wrote when I first was preparing for this. It says, building something doesn't always have to be looked at from a physical standpoint. The thing that God may want you to build right now, is integrity for His word, or a deeper relationship with Him. Look at David. He was called to be a king, but his ministry didn't start with kingship. He had to build up. He had to build up endurance through suffering. He had to learn patience and trust. So the thing is, you may be called to be a pastor. You may be called to be an evangelist. You may be called to be a great prophet to the nations. But there is something that needs to be built first. The children of Israel, when all of the people who had to wander in the wilderness for 40 years died, after they died, they went to go take the promised land. So the people who got to take the promised land, they got to see for 40 years. They got to see what their parents did. They got to see the mistakes that they made. They had to build up that faith in God. They had to build up that trust in God. They had to see what He did and continue to believe that they can take the land because their God is with them. God, I love this right here, but your ministry, whether it be singing, dancing, speaking, praying, your ministry, whether it be teaching kids, whether it be being a mother or father, your ministry will expand more and more the more you go in God. The deeper you are in tune with God, the closer you are connected to Him, but the more growth, the more expansion of your territory you will have. And this is the thing, your ministry is so connected to God that if you are out of His will, or if you are not seeking Him, if you are not allowing Him to pour into you what you need in you for those moments, patience, kindness, forgiveness, whatever the case may be, then you won't grow. It won't be a flow. Everything will be a battle. It won't be no moments where you're just like, this is easy. I can defeat this because God is with me, or I went to go pray today and I spent time with the Lord. I know what His Word says, because if we don't know what His Word says, if we don't spend time with Him, if we don't give ourselves those moments, then we will not be prepared to go out into our respective fields. So, above all else, your relationship is the most important. Your relationship with God is the most important, because you have no ministry without relationship with God. You have no true ministry that's healing, impacting, that's showing people the light of God. You have no true ministry if you're not in God. And I'm not saying that you won't, there won't be times where you may, mess up, and maybe times where you can't seem to get into the presence of God. I'm talking about if you're not, if you just like, thinking you can do it in your own strength, I promise you it won't work. It will never work. So you need God's strength. You need His favor. You need His guidance to build your ministry. So there has to be a lot of moments of you asking God, what is the next step? What do I need to do? How should this be done? When should I make this move? Trusting that He'll guide you intentionally and intimately. I'm going to keep on reading just so I can reach out my memory. The ways in which you toiled and built when no one was looking or helping will be the reason you have a ministry and a testimony. So the things that you've battled when there was no one around, the things that you fought through when the whole world wasn't looking at you, when many people couldn't see you, those are the reasons that you will have a ministry, that your ministry will be authentic and it will be real. It won't come across as something that they're just talking. Every time you speak, they'll feel the authenticity. They'll feel and they'll believe they'll believe that they can do what you did, because you're giving them the faith that came from real moments. You're giving them the faith. You're giving them the feeling of the victory that comes from the victory that you already won over certain things. So if you battle lust, if you battle addiction in any way, shape, or form, once you overcome that thing and you give the testimony to other people, they won't have no choice but to feel it and take it in. Like they can't hide from it, because they feel the realness. They feel the authenticity. So do not cry. No, you can cry, but do not complain and do not worry about the fact that you may be in a space where you just feel like you're still battling things, or you still, because once you knock that thing out, I'm telling you, you're gonna knock everyone else's out for them. Whatever you was battling, addiction, now you're gonna knock everybody else's addiction out. Unforgiveness, now you're gonna knock everybody else's unforgiveness out. Whatever it is that you're battling, whatever it is that you overcame, that is the reason that you will have a ministry, and it's time to build it. It's not the end goal or title that makes you who you are supposed to be. It's in the journey that God continually brings you to the fullness of who He called you to be before you were born. Well, it's a great verse that I just talked about on TikTok the other day. It's Romans chapter 8. One of the best chapters in the whole Bible. I'm going to read it for y'all. I'm talking about Romans chapter 8, verse 30 through 33, I believe. Let's look at it. Just give me 1 second. Romans chapter 8, verse 30. Moreover, whom He predestined, these He also called. Whom He called, these He also justified. And whom He justified, these He also glorified. So this is the way it goes. He predestined you. Before you were born, He chose you. And he even told His disciples that, you didn't choose me. I chose you. I chose you. And see, He predestined you, right? But now that you're at a certain point, even it's no longer a predestined. He's calling you now. He's calling you to live in the present and to live out the thing that he called before you were born. And he said if he called you, he also justified you. Justify means to make right in the sight of God. He's made you right in the sight of him. So if he's made you right in the sight of him, you do not have to worry about what other people will think, how they will look at you, how they will see you, because he's justified you. He's justified you for that place. Why? Because he did it. Because he predestined you. He called you to do it before you were born. So you don't have to worry about, I'm not qualified. I can't do it. This is not me. Because he put something in you. You may not have tapped into it yet, but he put something in you so that you can do those things. You're already justified. You don't have to worry about who agrees with you. You don't have to worry about if they think it's cool or not. You don't have to worry about if the people who are higher in that field say you're doing it wrong, because you're doing it the way that it will pull many to you. You're doing it in a way that the same people who went through what you went through, they'll gravitate towards you because they see the same thing. They see that they can win because you're just like them. So do not allow anyone to push you out of your position, to push you out of your God-given call because of fear, because it's not being done the same way it used to be done. Because things need to be revamped sometimes, because there are people who aren't going to be drawn the same way people were drawn 10, 20 years ago. And it says, whom he justified, he also glorified. Glorified means to put the spotlight on, to highlight. He spotlighted you so that others can see you and you can give him the glory. He said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. So when you lift God up in everything that you do, there will be people coming to you because they see the God in you. And God will allow you, by his power, to help them, heal them, give them knowledge, give them understanding, give them counsel. So you have to understand that he's predestined you, he's called you, he's justified you, and he's glorifying you so you can give him the glory. He will not glorify you if he knows that you won't give him the glory, because he wants the glory. He wants the glory out of every situation because he deserves it. In verse 31, we all know this. It says, what then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? No one can be against you, because God has made you who you are. There is no one else who qualifies you but God. There is no one else who puts you in position but God. Verse 32. He who did not spare his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? He already gave you everything when he gave you Jesus, because all things were made through Jesus, for Jesus, and by Jesus. So you don't have to worry about, I don't have this yet, I don't have that. You can just start, because when you place one brick down, all you can do is just place another one down and place another one down. You don't have to worry about it not looking like the end goal, because you have so much growth to go through. You will never be perfect on this earth. You can't be perfect in your own strength. You can't be perfect. He will make you perfect. When the horn blows, when the trumpet blows, he'll make you perfect with the snap of a finger, twinkling of an eye. So don't worry about that. It says, who shall bring a charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. So nobody can bring a charge against you. When you're walking as God has called you to walk, when you're walking in authority, when you're walking in the confidence, when you're walking in the power, no one can come against you and charge you with anything, because he justified you. So do not worry about if it does not look like how everyone else thinks it should look, how everyone else perceives it should look. Do not worry. Do not think too hard on it, because God has called you to that field. And if God has stamped you, there's no greater stamp. There's no greater stamp. There's no greater stamp. God has called you. And he wants us all to pick up the call, to build brick by brick, to learn of him and to teach others of him. Because in this year, I believe revival will be great. I'm talking about great. Great. I'm talking about the book of Acts type great. I believe that revival, I believe that the churches are going to be filled again. I believe that there are souls wanting something, craving something, thirsting for something, but they know not what it is, but it is God. And you have God to show them. You have God in you. And it's time for you to release it in every way, shape, or form that he's called you to release it. Now get me pumped up. And let's talk about, like we just said, no one can charge against you, right? No one can set a charge against you, because God justified you. But there will always be a resistance where you are building something for the kingdom of God. When you are building something that's going to be great, there will always be a resistance. John the Baptist got his authority questioned when he was baptizing and preaching. So God told John the Baptist, all right, it's time to come out of your wilderness. It's time to show yourself to the people. It's time to preach repentance. It's time to preach righteousness, John. And he went out there, and the people who are in positions of authority and power came out questioning him. Who are you? They're trying to question his authority. They're trying to question your authority in God. But God has given you the authority, so don't allow anyone to snatch it away. Don't allow anyone to snatch it away because God has given you the authority. You do not have to be afraid of being bold and undignified. You do not have to be afraid of being radical because God will make provision for you in every single way, shape, or form. This man went out of the wilderness and just started preaching, and many started coming to be baptized. People started coming to be baptized. They say he's a prophet. He's come to lead us to righteousness. They believed because it was an authentic occurrence. It was an authentic event. He walked with God. He grew in God. And then when he had to show himself, everybody believed. It was a great belief because it was authentic. And he did not fear. He allowed his authority to be shown. Nehemiah was mocked, ridiculed, and they tried to kill him for building a wall. For building a wall. They tried to kill him for building a wall. They laughed at him when he said, let's build this wall back up. They laughed at him and said, it would never be done. You're rebelling against the king. But Nehemiah had got favor from the king. Nehemiah had got the stamp from God. God gave him favor and made the king give him the supplies to build. Gave him the deed so he could build. He gave him army men. He gave him soldiers and guards to help build and to protect and all of that stuff. So when you are called, God will always give you everything that you need, but you have to walk by faith. You have to take the next step. If you don't take the next step, you may not see what is right there over the hump. You may not see it. You may not see what's right around the corner because you don't take the next step. You're thinking, oh, I can't take the next step without this. But you can take it. You can take it because God will provide. Yahweh Yeda, He will provide. If you just take the step forward, I'm preaching to myself right now. If you just take the step forward, He will always provide. Listen. We can never focus on the resistance. Focus on the plan and trust that God will give you a solution when curveballs are thrown your way. Because there will always be things that you did not expect. There will always be things that you did not expect. But God sees all. So when we lean out into our own understanding, when we think not for ourselves, when we see with His eyes and not our own, then we will be able to overcome everything because He knows everything that's going to happen. He knows the unexpected and the expected. He knows. He knows secret things that only He knows. So we gotta trust that He wants the best for us. We have to trust that He wants the best for us. I can honestly tell y'all, with starting this podcast, y'all heard it before, but starting this podcast, I was literally like, I need money. I need this. I need that. I need a building. I need all of this. But He literally told me to start ghetto. Like, just start with what you have. But yeah, I'm out here buying microphones. I'm out here doing this, doing that. And now I'm only using my phone to make podcasts. He's giving me the provision. He's giving me the people to interview. He's giving me certain things. So as I keep taking steps in faith, you'll continue to see growth because I'm walking by faith and not by sight. And it's the same for you. If He's told you that you need to buy this building, He told you that you need to move away from this town, if He told you that you need to do this, I promise you there will be a great harvest for your obedience. There will be. So just trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord because He sees everything that we do, the good and the bad. There's someone writing down everything that we did. He sees everything that we did. And a lot of times, it's just fear. That's just what it is. We're scared to fail. We're scared to be mocked. We're scared to be ridiculed. But in Nehemiah, you gotta read Nehemiah. When you read Nehemiah, you'll see what I mean. In Nehemiah, they laughed and ridiculed him. But he prayed. He literally prayed every time. They said that we're gonna kill Nehemiah. We're gonna kill Nehemiah and everybody building that wall. Nehemiah heard about the plans to kill him, and guess what? He prepared. He prayed to God and he prepared for them coming up against him. He said that he had men working with one hand and a sword in the other hand. He said that they didn't change their clothes. They did not change their clothes. And when they went to go wash up, they had their swords with them. They were prepared for battle at every single moment. And that's what it means to be in ministry. being prepared for battle at every single moment, because there will be occurrences that things come in to try to pull at your feelings, to pull at your pain, to pull at your hurts, to pull at your weariness. It will be things that come up to pull against you. There will be people who you love so dearly that come up against you and say things that are devastating, that makes you just like, oh, I quit, I give up. But you have to understand, you should not change your clothes. Your clothes should be clothes of righteousness. Your clothes should be clothes of putting your hands to the plow, working for the kingdom of light, preaching the gospel. Your clothes should never change, because the moment we change our clothes, the moment we put our swords down, that's when we will be vulnerable. And this is the thing. When Nehemiah planned and set all this stuff up so that they would, just in case the attack never came, because they were fearful. They were fearful. They seen that they meant business. They was not playing. So you have to continue to build, no matter how you feel, no matter what they say, no matter what you hear in your ears that's not from God. You have to trust and believe. You have to fight and push forward. You have to keep going. Next step. Do not be discouraged. Do not be dismayed, because He is with you. If God be for you, who can be against you? Let that be your verse for the month. Let it be your verse for the month that you remind yourself of every morning. If God be for you, who can be against you? No one. Because who is mightier than God? Who is stronger than God? Who is greater than God? Nobody. That's not to say that the enemy won't be against you, but they cannot win. You have to understand where you are. You are above them. You are above and not beneath. You are the head, not the tail. You are a lender, not a borrower. So you do not have to worry, because your position is in Christ and everything else is under His feet. I'm gonna just share a quick testimony, because God gave me this word in February of last year. And I heard the Holy Spirit so clearly. Read Nehemiah 4-6. And I read it. And as I'm reading it, this is the time where I'm just building the podcast up. And I read it and I seen that it took Nehemiah and the people 52 days to build the wall. So I felt led to ask Siri, how many days ago was 52 days ago? And Siri said 52 days ago was January the 1st. It was February 22nd. She said 52 days ago was January the 1st. That was the day that I started to build. That was the day that I really started to build the podcast. And on the 52nd day that I was reading Nehemiah was the day that I did my first interview for the podcast. And I was just like, wow, this is just so amazing. Only God can do that. Because He was telling me that there will be distractions. There will be people coming up against you. There will be feelings of distress. There will be arrows thrown at you. But you have the shield of faith. You have the sword of the Spirit. You have the armor. You have everything that you need. You are equipped. Because if He called you, He equipped you. You have everything that you need. So do not be dismayed. Do not fear. You have to build. Because it's not just for you. This is a generational thing. You don't even know how many generations you're saving by you building. You don't even know how many healings will take place because you're building. You don't know how many connections you may come into. You don't even know if you may find your new home. You don't know what you're building. You don't know the end. But Noah was building something that he did not know what it was. He just knew a flood was coming and he just followed the instructions. You may not see fully what the end goal is, what you're building. You may do see it, but it's about the next step. It's just about the next step. So just trust in the Lord. Lean out into your own understanding, because your own understanding will get you hurt every single time. I know from experience. So just trust in the Lord. I love y'all. And I just thank y'all for tuning in. I pray that this reaches many, and I pray that y'all are filled up on faith today. That you take the next step. Write that book. Start journaling. Do that business, whatever the case may be. But seek God. Seek God first, and everything will align. I'm gonna drop the link below in the description to follow me on all social platforms. Don't forget to like, comment, and share, and just stay in touch. This will be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. I thank y'all for listening. I love y'all. Happy New Year.